Alright, next we got a video game video. This is Valve just completely changed the future of Team Fortress 2 by Casper. Wasn't Team Fortress like, you know, wasn't Valve doing nothing and it was bad? So did they finally do something and it's good, or is it just bad again?
The biggest TF2 update in nearly 8 years, released on the 18th of February 2025. And it isn't even anything to do with what's in the patch notes. Valve have just shared the entire game's SDK, the software development kit. And they've given permission for any games made with that kit to be released on Steam. Just to clarify what that means for anyone who's not too familiar with game development, Valve have...
I'm surprised that wasn't already okay, because like stuff like many big games on Steam were made from like was it the source engine, which I guess was available for people to use, or was it paid and this is free?
Created a version of TF2's code that anyone is allowed to freely copy, change in any way that they want, and then release that as their own game on Steam. You, literally right now, could download the code, delete the line that enables random crits by default, press a couple of buttons in the development software to convert that code into a playable game, and then release TF2, the No Crits edition, on Steam tomorrow. Now, any games made this way would still have to go through the regular Steam.
I was gonna say, you know, they would still delete it.
Approval process, so tomorrow is a little bit ambitious, but other than that, it now literally is that simple.
So Steam W, because I saw recently they also like banning AI game or something. No, not AI game. It was what was it? It was like games that have like forces you to watch ad to get in-game currency or stuff like that.
Valve doing this now raises a lot of questions about the future of what the community will do with this newfound power, but also a lot of questions about what Valve themselves will do with TF2 moving forward, if anything. As for what the community will do, I suspect there will be two main styles of game that we're going to see start to release on Steam. The first is games based on TF2, but with significant enough changes to make them feel like their own thing. In fact, there's already a few games like this. For example, Open Fortress, a game whose core is TF2, but with so many changes and additions that it is fundamentally a different game. Now, you might be wondering, how can something like Open Fortress already exist if these official tools were only just made available? Open Fortress and many other projects similar to it use a combination of reverse engineering and also a very old Valve development code that was leaked some years ago. So not only is the code that they're using super out of date, but it's also a legal minefield. And given that Valve's code was leaked without their permission, Valve have naturally always said a hard no, absolutely not, to any projects that they suspect were made using this leaked code ever releasing on Steam. But all of that changed with this latest update from Valve. Not only do community developers now have fully up-to-date code to work from, but they've got the big fat green light and even encouragement from Valve to release those projects on Steam.
This seems pretty awesome. I mean, obviously, it might be like an outdated engine or code or whatever. I don't really know the details, right? But all the games that this might spawn seems pretty awesome. There might be some big stuff coming out, yeah. Some very popular game happening.
Of course, massively increases the potential player base. And the good news doesn't end there, because part of this new development kit is full access to Team Fortress players' items. That means that when you play a game like Open Fortress on Steam, Open Fortress can see that you own the fancy fedora, for example, and they can now allow you to equip that same hat in their game. Or they could choose to allow you to equip the farty fedora, their hypothetical own equivalent of that hat in their game. Or they could do something completely unrelated, like allow you to select a bonus main menu background of the spy, but only if you've got at least 5 spy hats in the normal official Team Fortress game. Does anyone remember NFTs? One of the main selling points for NFTs in games was sharing items between games. Well, never mind the fact that Valve already did this with Team Fortress and Portal 2 all the way back in 2011, but Valve have just done it again with TF2 and any game that is now made with the TF2 software development kit. We are literally standing on the edge of a future where the next major metaverse is POTUS powered. But standalone fan games are just one style of game that this development kit enables. The other is improved versions of Team Fortress itself. And improved can mean just about anything. This could be TF2 exactly the same, but with extra bug fixes. or TF2 with graphical improvements, or TF2 with just new maps and weapons. Any and all of these.
I guess, would you say, like, again, I've never really been into TF2, but I've seen the news around, and I guess for a while it seemed like they had just abandoned the game. So maybe this is basically like, you know, they're basically saying, yeah, we have abandoned the game, so we're giving you the tools to do whatever you wanted us to do, but we're not gonna do it ourselves. I guess this might be what it is. They might not really do any update after that.
Approaches are essentially trying to do the same thing. Create a better alternative to TF2, the main game. And here's where I see potential conflict in TF2's future. It's an amazing thing that this freedom now exists, but this freedom also means that we could go on to see 2 or 3 or 300 alternative versions of TF2 all appear on Steam, all making claims about why they're the best version of the game. Now,
yeah,
on the
that
one
sounds
hand,
bad.
competition is good because it generally motivates everyone involved to improve the thing that they're offering. But on the other hand, there's only a finite number of active Team Fortress players. So splitting them between multiple versions of the game, which are all like 95% the same thing anyway, is at best simply going to spread players.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to happen like that. Most people will end up playing the popular one because most people know that they want to play with, you know, the game where most people are playing. So automatically this is going to sort itself out. I mean, 99% of the game won't have any players as everybody goes to the one that people are actually playing. It should be fine.
More thinly across all these different versions, and at worst, create an all-out war between fans who are loyal to one version or the other. But with that said, we do have an amazing, resilient community. I mean, look at us. We're here talking about an 18-year-old game which has spent nearly half of its life at this point without any new content made by the actual game developers.
Right.
So we're pretty good at supporting ourselves at this point. I think what we'll likely see is one prominent collective community effort here, where developers with many different ideas about the future of TF2 all decide to work together towards one single overall enhanced version of the game. Whether that does happen, of course, or if we'll get tens of subtly different versions, well, that remains to be seen. And let's not forget that any game or games which are trying to be the definitive TF2 will still have to compete with actual TF2, which isn't going anywhere. At least, not that we know of. One thing Valve was characteristically quiet on with this news was what this means for their involvement with Team Fortress moving forward. The new developer code released alongside a bunch of other minor bug fixes and quality of life features to the game itself. But at some point, Valve probably want to stop spending any time at all working on the game, even if it is just for minor bug fixes.
Is it not making money?
They probably want to stop spending any time manually sifting through summer, Halloween, and Christmas items and maps on the community workshop to decide what to include in seasonal updates. 4 years ago, I made a video speculating about the future of TF2 and listed 5 realistic possibilities, which I think are broadly still accurate today. The number one possibility was life support, what the game had essentially been in for 3 years already at that point, and what we now know continued for the 4 years after that as well. Another possibility I suggested was a major update to tie in with the final comic, which of course didn't happen, and now never will happen. But the final possibility I considered, and the one that I put the most stock into at the time, was Valve in some way handing the game over to the community. Now, whilst TF2, the official game, is still very much in Valve's hands, I don't think we can really get much closer to the game being handed over to us now than what Valve did on February 18th. The themes of moving on in the final comic somehow hit even harder now. But I don't know
if releasing
the game's code and giving the community permission to create whatever they want with it is Valve making the decision to never bug fix or never add community items to the actual game again. But this unprecedented release of the game's code being so close in time to the publishing of the final comic after what was otherwise 7.5 years of silence from Valve, it doesn't really feel like a coincidence to me. But maybe any decision like that hasn't even been made at all yet. And how involved Valve chooses to be with TF2 moving forward depends entirely on what exactly the community ends up creating with these new public tools. I'm not going to try and predict the future again today any more than I already have. But one thing is for sure, I'm going to be watching what happens with Team Fortress this year a little more eagerly than usual.
Okay, I mean, again, like, haven't they literally like given up on the game for years, and now they're releasing this? It seems like a pretty straightforward like statement. Yeah, it's like, like, sorry for giving up on the game for years, but we've moved on, so we'll still give you this, so you guys, can do what you want. That seems to be the statement. So I feel like, and again, that's pretty awesome because, obviously there's that big like court case or whatever that some YouTuber and gamers are trying to do, right? I signed it myself. Basically for, like there was, it's just one case, but it's about a lot of cases in video games, where there was that game, The Crew, like a racing game that was always online, and basically people bought it, and eventually they shut down the server and literally gave no way to the community to keep playing it. You couldn't make private server or anything. So basically something that you bought was rendered obsolete when the developer decided, well, the publisher. So, there's that whole lawsuit and thing to try to like change that system, where like if a publisher decide that they don't want to continue running the server, they have to release some way for people to still play the game. So like some kind of like community server system or something that they can do. But I guess, yeah, Valve is kind of doing that on their own. Obviously they've always been one of the better company in terms of dealing with the community, I guess. Yeah, so good news for people who play Team Fortress. Maybe I'll try that one day. I've said that for years. And I did play it maybe like a few hours at one point, some years ago, but not like I remember much from it. Alright, good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff from Valve. Seems like they have a lot of good news recently.